Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. My name is Sean Varner. I'm the very proud principal of Sandpiper Elementary School. And we are here tonight for DLSI, Dual Language Spanish Immersion Information Night. And when it comes to as far as information about DLSI, I know there are some questions, and there have been some questions as we advertise tonight. You know, who is this for? It's really for anybody and everybody. We marketed it to our incoming kindergartners for next year already. We're already thinking about next year in mind. And we also marketed it towards our current students. And the reason for that is with obviously folks that are thinking about DLSI school for next year, starting in kindergarten or even in pre-K, there's a lot of information to learn about the program. When it comes to you guys already in the program now, what's next? Well, what comes in junior high or middle school? What comes in high school? Excuse me. I have a Monday voice going on here, so bear with me. So there's a lot of questions that come up depending on where you are in the program or where your kiddos are in the program, whether you're just beginning, whether you're just thinking about coming into the program, or whether you're soon to be exiting the program. Those of you who have been in it since kindergarten or even pre-K, and you have sixth graders now, where do we go from here? And the possibilities are endless. And beyond the possibilities being endless, they're exciting. And that's what we're here to talk to you about tonight. So with that said, you notice there's somebody else here with me, and it was also in the flyer that we sent out to everybody. And many of you already know who this is. This is Cristina Ladas, gosh, where do I begin? Resident expert on dual language immersion, not only in the state of Arizona, but nationally for that matter. And she has done her own program in the past, and now is an educational consultant and a highly respected educational consultant. And she's going to talk to you tonight about her experiences, not just at Sandpiper, but throughout the state of Arizona. And I don't know if she's going to talk about the state of Delaware much at all, but she consults with the state of Delaware as well, but about the benefits of DLI and all of the possibilities that are out there. So I want to thank you for being here tonight, and I want to give a warm welcome to Cristina Ladas.
That was a great introduction. I'm honored and humbled to be here. I always love presenting to parents. And I'll give you a little bit of a background on myself. I started teaching in 1991, and I was a bilingual education teacher. That's me in the middle of my students. And then I learned about the dual language immersion model, because at first I was teaching in a program where I only had to teach them English and not keep up their Spanish. And so I was like, gosh, that seems kind of strange. But then when I started learning about dual language immersion, I became a complete convert, and that has been my passion ever since. So from there, I have been obviously teacher, coordinator, district director of programs. I've started different types of models of programs, 1 ways, 2 ways. These are kind of a lot of different models, but French immersion, Chinese immersion, Spanish immersion. And lately I've stepped out of the public school field and into this consulting, and I'm having a ball. I'm just having so much fun working with people who want to get better and want to understand the research behind it and implement a model with Fidelity, which Paradise Valley has always kind of kept me on the side a little bit for the last couple of years, and I truly enjoy coming here and working with the teachers here. Everybody is amazing. So we just launched our 5th, and we also, myself and some colleagues of mine, we have put together the Arizona DLI Network. which is a statewide network, and we provide trainings and, but probably the most important thing is that I am also a parent of dual language kids, just like you guys, one of those crazy parents. Because I know, because yeah, it's that we know that about, you know, dual language parents. We're kind of passionate about this and we want it to be done right, and we are pretty vocal. But yeah, I have 3 kids who are now 2 graduated from college and 1 halfway done with college. 2 boys did exactly what I recommended always to the high schoolers and to the students that are here tonight, which, by the way, can you guys stand up and can we give you a round of applause? I mean, I know you're gonna get out of doing some homework, but you know, that's beside the point. But no, I think it's really important because this is a part of your future. And if you play your cards right, you're gonna be set up really nicely. So what I always tell students is that, you know, when you keep going in this program, you don't stop after 6th grade. Like this is a lifelong thing. So you keep going middle school, you finish high school, you keep going, and then you go to college. By the time you go to college, you're gonna get some college credit while you're still in high school. And so then it's only gonna be a couple more classes and you can get a minor, which looks great, right? Because, and I say, everybody just major in whatever you're gonna work in. So my oldest majored in business, minored in Spanish. My second one majored in mechanical engineering, and he double majored in Spanish. He spent a year abroad in Spain. He did a program through NAU. If you want to hear more about these programs, NAU program is pretty amazing. They have to go abroad for a year. Half of the year is to study in the language. So he took mechanical engineering courses in Spanish in Spain with Spanish students from Spain, and almost didn't make it, but he hung in there, and because that's a big step, right? And then the second semester he did an internship there in mechanical engineering in Spanish. So I mean, it does amazing things for you as you prepare to go out into the real world. And my daughter's gonna be a nurse, so she uses Spanish all the time. And she's halfway done. So today, just wanted to spend a little bit of time together with you. Want to talk a little bit about why are we kind of passionate and crazy about dual language immersion? What's the big deal with it? How does it actually work? And a little bit about, I'm going to just cover some parental speed bumps. Just talk about some speed bumps that you might come up against and how to handle them. And just give you more information so you have that in your back pocket. So let's start by defining dual language immersion and DLI. I know here you call it DLSI, but go ahead and just talk with somebody next to you and just kind of define what is this program? How would you define it? Right, do I have any volunteers who want to just share their definition? There's a lot of definitions. I'll bring the microphone over. Who wants to share their definition? Not all in one. You guys have to have some ideas of what it is. All right, you guys do that. The ones who are in the program, you guys should have a definition of it first and foremost. Yes. Yeah.
I think blending Spanish, English all together and being bilingual.
Okay. Thank you. That's a great definition. Good job. One more. What's another thing that you've heard about what this program is or how it functions? Oh, another one over here. Okay.
I think it's like, learning half the day English.
Okay. Learning half the day in English, half the day in Spanish. Thank you. So yeah, after tonight, you should have a little better idea and some additional definitions to add to your definition. One thing I do want to say that I always think is really important is that dual language immersion is good for all kids and it's open to all kids. So it's not an elitist program. It's not meant for only certain students. It's open for all and it is good for everyone. So it's really an enrichment or an additive approach to education. So I have found that the shortest definition is that I heard a colleague of mine use is schooling in 2 languages. Going to school in 2 languages, right? And here it's half a day in each. So you can keep that in your back pocket if you ever need a quick definition. And then we get into like, why would we want to go to school in 2 languages? Why would we want to do this? Well, it opens up a world of opportunities, especially when you start young, because at the age of kindergarten or preschool, even here, those brains are wide open for language learning. When I was little, I spoke, my first 2 languages were Hungarian and Spanish simultaneously. I had Hungarian grandparents, and then my parents spoke to me in Spanish. And then later my dad started to switch to English. But I had no trouble turning to one person and speaking in one language, turning to another person and speaking in another language. And that's just the child's brain. They are wired for acquiring language. The young brain is totally different than the adult brain trying to learn a language. So we have brain research that shows that there are cognitive benefits to learning in this method and learning another language young. Obviously, the job market, moving out into college and career ready, being able to get along in the world, having a better sense of like who you are in the world. Dual language students tend to have just a better kind of global sense of the world. They're not just in a little bubble. And the last thing is that dual language students, because they are spending half of the day trying to figure out what the teacher is saying, they become very resilient, and they develop some serious grit and determination, and they can't really be stumped very easily because they are literally being language detectives for half of the day. And that means that when they have to take a test, when they have to do something that's hard, they don't back down. They're like, oh yeah, I've been doing hard stuff all my elementary career, so this is no different. So those are kind of some of the general benefits of why we would do dual language. But I want you guys to take a look at the handout that I gave you with the people around you. Just take a peek at that and find like one thing that really stands out to you. Like, what's one thing that you read on there that you think is like, oh, I didn't know that. Take a minute to just kind of look that over. The help one. All right, so who gets your one thing that kind of stood out that you maybe didn't know before? Yes? The test scores, interesting, what does it say? Bilingual students do better on standardized test scores in math, reading, and vocabulary. Did you know that? Yeah, that is like in every big national research study that has been done. It shows the same results. Dual language students outperform their non-dual language peers over time. And the reason is, in my opinion, is what the brain does when it's learning in two languages, when it's young, and also part of that grit and determination that they just are not going to get stumped. What's something else that you see on there that looks kind of interesting or something you didn't really think about? The adults are so shy tonight. Yes?
The employability, 88% of businesses say they would take somebody with 2 languages or somebody with 1.
Yeah. Yes. Not sure if you can hear me. I'll try to use my teacher voice. Yeah, no, exactly. That's great. What else? The jobs. We've got a test score. Yes.
I didn't know about better recovery after this, so.
Right. Yeah, there's some really interesting things, and that has to do with just how the brain gets wired up. Before puberty is kind of that's the key point, turning point, where the brain changes. When you're going through your adolescent years, your brain prunes away the ability to hear any language and be able to reproduce it with a native accent very easily, because your brain kind of says, well, we already learned the language we need to survive, so we're good. So we're gonna reorganize. That's what adolescents are. So fun. Got it. But yeah, these benefits of being bilingual will last until your older ages, because once your brain is formed like that, it stays formed like that. And even though, for example, I don't use Hungarian, which was one of my first languages, very much anymore, hardly ever. When I hear somebody speaking Hungarian, I understand everything. And I didn't even have, when I try to speak it, I actually have a really good accent, and that is a hard language. And people will look at me like, really? You do? Okay. So yeah. So hang on to this, because this is something to really look at. I mean, at every age of your life, being bilingual will be a benefit. So here's my tip for students. Use it or lose it. So you want to continue taking your language classes, like I said, through high school. Don't leave a gap, because once you get to college, they're gonna give you a little placement test, even though you're probably gonna have your college credit already done, and they're gonna place you in upper division courses. So you don't want to have a gap, because you'll forget a little bit. Okay, so that's my tip for students. So because of this understanding of how language works, Paradise Valley has committed a K-12 Continuum Pathway for students. So from here, they go to Desert Shadows, and it goes from a 50-50 model, it goes to a 70-30, which means there's 2 periods a day in Spanish, and the rest of the classes are in English. And that's totally normal in middle school. That's the minimum. There are not a lot of middle schools that are able to do 50-50. It just becomes too difficult, and kids want to take electives, and understandably so. So they have to take at least 2 periods a day, which is what they have at Desert Shadows, and then they continue in high school. So in high school, if everything goes well and you're on track, you would go into the level 3 class. Okay, and you all or those of you who have been here and have upper level kids know about the ABLE test. Okay, so those scores, the ABLE test, which tests your proficiency in Spanish, those are some of the things that would be used to determine where your placement is when you go to high school. Okay, so there you have you guys all have that. You can you can look it over, but yeah, don't stop because you're in the middle of your trajectory if you're in sixth grade. I want to also point out that there is something called the Seal of Biliteracy for high schoolers. Every single state, except for South Dakota, and they're working on it, but they're the last state to pass legislation to support the Seal of Biliteracy. Arizona has it already in place. So I will tell you that typically high schoolers will try to get the Seal of Biliteracy, regular high schoolers, by senior year. And dual language students, we see that they start to hit the same score that's required by the Seal of Biliteracy in 8th grade. So they are already showing in 8th grade that they could qualify for the Seal of Biliteracy, but they have to wait to apply for it towards the end of high school. So another reason to stay in it. That's a Seal of Biliteracy that is given by the Arizona State Board of Education, and it goes on your diploma and it goes on your transcripts, and you can put it on your resume and on your college applications. There are some colleges that do give credit for that, not in Arizona yet, because there's just other states that are a little bit further ahead of us, but in some other states, they are recognizing the Seal of Biliteracy for some credits. It kind of looks like that, and you have to prove your proficiency in English with your English courses and your English standardized test scores, and in the Apple or the AP test or some other proficiency-based assessment in Spanish. All right. Then you get out into the real world, and this is what we find is that the most in-demand languages reported by US employers, you can see which one is number one. Spanish by far, 85%. So, and that's not, that doesn't mean that you're gonna have to go travel abroad to work in Spanish. That means US-based employers. That means working here. So you guys are very well positioned to go out into the real world if you hang in there and keep it up. I have a testimonial I wanted to share with you since I've had a lot of programs. My oldest group of students are now 26 or 27 years old. And this is Dominique. She started in Spanish immersion. She started in 1st grade. And then she decided she really was interested in French. She took some French classes. Then she thought, I'm gonna take some Chinese, and we started Chinese classes and German classes. So she took some of those, and this is her when she's halfway through college. She did a little testimonial for me. I said, can you just tell parents and people like what this program means for you? So, oh, we didn't test the that's not, but all right, let's hope that this works.
Hello everyone, my name is Dominique Reichenbach, and I was in the main controller of the Chinese Immersion program. I'm now in my last year of undergrad at Biliteracy University, majors on Chinese and global studies, minors are French, so really good language being ran with it. I'm so grateful that I participated in the Chinese Immersion program, and I cannot stress enough how important it is, I think, for other students to also participate in the program. The amount of opportunities that it's brought to me in my life. I'm actually right now in Taiwan, finishing up my last year of undergrad. I'm here as a boring scholar, which means that I have full government funding to be there, and that I have a guaranteed job with the US government when I return to the States. I would not have gotten this scholarship without being able to reflect on the Spanish immersion program in my application essays. And the Spanish immersion program has actually helped me land several government scholarships throughout both high school and college. I've also been able to use Spanish professionally as well as academically. I have done several internships where I translated articles. I used to work for a while as a Spanish language interpreter in Phoenix. So it's been a really remarkable skill to have. But also growing up as a kid, you know, studying Spanish not only helped form language skills, but also reading comprehension, vocabulary, spelling, cognitive development, every facet of my life.
So yeah, I love showing hers because she's like a perfect example of what the brain does. Once you learn one language, learning another one is easier, and learning the third one is even easier. And so, that's just, I know she started in Spanish immersion, but her majors were Chinese and global studies and not Spanish, right? French. And now she's graduated and she works in Washington, D.C. She was very heavily recruited and she works at the Department of Justice. I keep up with her every now and then, and I was just trying to track her down. And I had to call her mom, and her mom's like, "Oh no, she's in like the Middle East somewhere for 10 days." I'm like, "Okay, boy, can you keep up with her?" But it just kind of goes to show, like, it just opens your world. And so that's Dominique. So let's talk a little bit about how it works. How do you get these crazy results? So, we always think ideas are easy and we say, it's schooling in 2 languages. It's half a day in one language, half a day in another. Well, there is a lot more to it. And it does take a team to execute this well. And I just want to give a shout out to Paradise Valley teachers, Sandpiper teachers, and administrators for always working together, because you guys have always, and you're here tonight, that just kind of goes to show too. You guys are awesome. So for those of you who have not seen a program, because I know you were inviting some preschool, I have a little video. I was gonna maybe show it if you want. It's kind of a really well-known school in New York City that actually has a Spanish and a Mandarin Chinese strand of programs. So if you guys are up for it, I'll show it. It's like 4 minutes long, but you'll get some ideas of what it looks like. Because sometimes I get parents in meetings and they don't quite know what it looks like. So I'll play it about 4 minutes. And then just as you're watching, think of like one thing that maybe jumped out at you that you're like, oh, look how they did that. That's kind of interesting.
Buenos días, amigos. Hoy vamos a hablar sobre el año nuevo chino y sobre la
Immersion is a form of education in which schooling is conducted through a new language. Immersion programs teach the regular school content through the new language. It's not teaching a foreign language for an hour or several hours a day. It's teaching math or science or social studies through that new language.
Estábamos hablando de edición. Y yo hice construir edición grande. Una casa.
Some parents ask, how is an immersion program different from other types of foreign language or bilingual schools in my community? Well, an immersion program has to be at least half a day. It has to teach full content through the language. It has to develop high levels of language proficiency and high levels of literacy as measured by some kind of external measurement, not just because the school tells you that stuff.
Morado.
Immersion is actually becoming the fastest growing innovation in language education today. The reason that it's so popular is that it works. And immersion works better than just about any other kind of language teaching that we have tried to do in the schools. If knowing another language is extremely important to you, for your children, and for your family, you'll be looking for an immersion program.
So what are some things that you heard through that video that kind of stood out, at you? Jumped out at you like, oh, that's interesting, how they did that. What are some things that you think would be a highlight of a good program that you saw in this video?
Using every opportunity throughout the day.
Yeah, super language rich, right? And so lots of language, even in the elevator, getting ready to go home, because they're in a high-rise building, they're using songs. What else did you notice yet?
Snack time.
Snack time, right? Let's get language done during snack time. Yeah, one more.
I the music teacher here at Sandpiper, and so, I was paying attention to how much they're getting exposed to
Music.
language songs.
Right.
And
Yes.
exactly the gestures.
Right. Yes.
Even if we're speaking in a normal context in a school with younger children especially, people will take on a same tone of voice too. And I was thinking about what I know about at least in some languages, it's just important. And like when you talk about someone sounding authentic with the way that they speak, being aware of like the intonation, like how do you rhythmically say something, and that leads into, syntax and grammar and how to pick up patterns and repeat patterns.
Right. Yes. Oh my gosh. You guys have a Spanish speaking music teacher here. Did you know that? Yeah. That's awesome. So she's totally talking about pitch and all of that stuff. But you saw like even reading a story, because when you read a story, you have that intonation and and those are the things that really help the kids learn it in a native like way. So yeah, I love this video. It just really kind of shows a lot of really great strategies that are being used in a really good program. So then I want to say, over the years, the dual language immersion field has become very research based and very much now focuses on something called Fidelity Assurances, which come from big research publication. Fidelity Assurances are like the guiding principles for this particular model. And these are the ones that we've kind of narrowed down in Arizona, but they come from this publication that I'm telling you about that is from the Center for Applied Linguistics. And it's downloadable if you want to read the whole thing, but it's quite extensive. But you can see there's a lot to think about in this program, and we're getting very, very specific. We're drilling down to a lot of specifics to make sure that the program is done with Fidelity and is very successful, the best it can be. So we have to talk about program structure, curriculum, instructional practices. We also have to talk about assessment and accountability, staff quality, professional learning, and even family and community advocacy. What we're doing tonight is part of the Fidelity Assurances, because it's important to educate the parents on what this model looks like. It's not how you guys went to school, so it's totally different. So one of the things that I like to highlight, because Sandpiper has been working on these Fidelity Assurances as a way of refining its model over the years and doing some self-evaluation on how they're doing and tweaking where necessary, which is, I think, what we all do, right? Lifelong learning. So currently, Sandpiper has this 50-50 DLI model where they use Spanish and English, and the Spanish teacher and the English teacher are both using 100% Spanish or English, depending on what side of the day they're on. So that's kind of the goal of where we want to be. This is called a partial immersion program. There's other models out there, but that's pretty much what you're going to find here in Arizona, in Phoenix. And then, so some of the things that we do to double check to make sure that we have that 50% of the time, teachers will get together and they'll work on their pie chart, they'll count their minutes, they'll make sure that they're doing 50% of the time in each language, because sometimes those charts can get a little wonky. So that they look for evidence of that. And then we look at how are we going to divide up the content areas. So currently the content areas in English are in kindergarten through 3rd grade are English language arts and social studies, which kind of pair nicely together. And then on the Spanish side, there's Spanish language arts, math, and science. And then you'll see over here, there's a little section that says reinforcement bridging of math and science. So on the English side, there's supposed to be a little sliver of the pie where the English side teacher can do some of the review, some of the reinforcement that might need to be done. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Then, after 3rd grade, there is a switch between math and social studies. And math goes to the English side, and social studies comes over to the Spanish side. Does anybody want to take a guess why? Yes,
Because parents can't do 4th grade math.
that's one of really good reasons. Did you have something to add?
Why wouldn't it start with the opposite from the beginning instead of doing the break and switch?
So the reason we put math on the Spanish side initially is because that math is a very concrete subject area in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, even 3rd grade. The kids are learning one-to-one correspondence. They have a lot of manipulatives, so the teacher can stay in 100% Spanish while showing we're counting, we're putting these cubes together, and the kids can follow because they need to have something to follow. Social studies is a little bit more of an abstract content area. And so social studies tends to be more language rich. And so we leave it for maybe 4th through 6th grade, because that way, at some point, like, you can't really grow language through math anymore. It's just hard because math is just so much about numbers and the language of math. And so once the kids have the basics under their language proficiency under their CAPs, then we switch the Spanish over to social studies to continue to move their proficiency up. Because in social studies, you can talk about things in the past, you can talk about things in the future, and you can't give that to kindergarten or 1st grade or 2nd grade. That's a little bit too much at the beginning of an immersion program. So that's the reason for the switch. And then that section called reinforcement or bridging time is just I wanted to just kind of point out the kids are going to transfer a lot on their own from Spanish to English, just because that's how the brain works. But there will be certain little things that the English side teacher will want to revisit, reinforce, or help bridge that language over, and I have an example for you in a minute. So let's think of it like this. Everybody here knows how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? But let's say you are asked to go to Mexico and you go to a classroom and they ask you to teach them how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in Spanish. And so what would you need to successfully deliver that cooking demonstration in Spanish? Because you know how to make it, right? You know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but what are you missing? Vocabulary. What else?
Grammar,
Sorry?
like grammar.
The grammar of how to put sentences together.
Visual, bread, jam.
Yeah, you'll have to have, for sure. Yes, you'll have to have visuals to help you. But yeah, so steps, right? And so I guess the big point is here, like, this is how kids do it. They go to math in Spanish. They know, they've learned how to add and subtract and multiply in Spanish, but they might not know the exact words in English for like add, subtract, multiply, divide. They might need the English side teacher to just kind of reinforce that a little bit. And that's always something that I tell parents, that you guys can help bridge that as well. Like, they know, you don't have to reteach how to add or subtract because they already know how to do it, but they just need a little bit of practice in English. So maybe even saying some numeric sentences, or knowing that when you see a word problem that says how many are all together, that means you have to add, or in total, or to add, I have to put 2 + 2 together. So those are just some of the ways that the brain works. Like, the kids are learning their concepts in another language, and they will bridge that learning to use it whenever, but they might need a little bit of reinforcement with the English words. That being said, when they start taking their math tests in English, their state standardized math tests in English in 3rd grade, they're usually pretty much on par with the non-dual language peers. What ends up happening is that you start seeing the gains, the spread, where the dual language immersion start to outperform their non-DLI peers as they get like into 5th grade and 8th grade. So this is kind of to help you kind of think about it. It's kind of like this. So just think about your child's first language ability. When your child first started to speak, think of it as kind of like an iceberg. And maybe just tell your neighbor, like, what do you think what's the top of the iceberg, and what's the part that's underneath the water? I'm thinking like a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old, you know, and they're just starting to kind of speak. The upper part of the iceberg tends to be what they can actually say, right? What they can produce. But do they understand a lot more than what they can say? Oh my gosh, yes, they understand like everything. So their receptive knowledge comes first. So a lot of times, if you have your children in dual language immersion, you might think, why aren't they speaking more? It takes a little while for that underneath part of the iceberg to show. And it doesn't, there's always a little bit of a delay, but they're understanding a ton. They just have to have opportunities to use it. And that's what we do in the classrooms as a teacher's job, right? They work on finding ways to get the kids to use the language so that more of that iceberg from the bottom will start to show at the top. So that kind of it explains that sometimes if you think, oh, they're not really saying a lot, don't worry. They have a huge iceberg under the water. It's there. It's just sometimes not visible. And so like I said, the end result in dual language programs is that they tend to just outperform their non-dual language immersion peers. And these are different research studies that I didn't want to go into too much depth today, but I'm happy to, the teachers know I've shared the studies with them. Definitely in English reading, that's where we see the highest, like pull away. English reading, and then math and science. Some of the studies show that they're kind of the same, others show that they're better, never worse. So they're the same or better. And depending on how much science you do, right? Science can be a very language-rich area, content area too. So here's a little speed bump, just because I know that you guys will hit speed bumps. And there is no clean trajectory through 12th grade, you guys. There will be, and I had 3 kids, and so I know. I had one kid who loved the teacher, and then the next kid, same teacher, did not care for that teacher. It's just speed bumps, right? And as a parent, you have to know how to navigate through those and just say some of this is kind of part of life, and you have to just learn how to deal with it. But here's one. So speed bump. Your child struggles with homework in Spanish. So just talk to the next person over. What do you do when your kid comes home and has a hard time with Spanish homework? All right, let's have you guys share a couple of strategies of things that you do to help your kids homework in Spanish. It's a hot topic. Yes. Okay, I'll repeat that because that was kind of hard to hear. But she said that she'll tell her child when her child comes home to teach me what you learned in school today. And that way you can try to get a little idea of what was going on, right? Yeah, that's a good strategy. What's another strategy that you can use to help your kids with homework in Spanish? Google Translate. Yeah, so okay, that's a hot topic. So Google Translate, I would say as a parent, feel free to use it on the back end, but don't encourage your child to rely on Google Translate. Because number one, it's not always accurate. It doesn't always understand the context of the question that you're asking. And, you know, you don't want it to become a crutch for the students because then they might learn something the wrong way. But for parents, I say it's great, right? It'll give you at least an idea of what's going on, right? But you have to make a distinction and tell your kids, I have to use this because I'm not in an immersion program and I don't have the ability to understand much of what you're telling me. So, but kids, don't rely too much on Google Translate because it will lead you down the wrong path at some point. So that's just something to remember there. Okay, good. One more. I don't know what was that already. They were talking. Oh, we can go get the English version of the Spanish. Okay, yeah, as a parent, you might ask for, maybe there's an English version online that you can kind of like go and see if it's unit 2 with math, you can get into the English one. Take a peek.
That most, like in 3rd grade, they know a lot more than they put out.
That's a really good point too. And then that's why I put this one here back up on the screen, because as your kids get older and they go through this program, they're gonna know that you cannot help them as a parent. You just can't help them with their homework. And guess what? They learn to become very independent. And as they go higher and higher, then I think dual language parents are able to step away from helping with homework a little bit sooner than dual language parents, and that's actually a good thing, because it leads to independence, and the kids, if they don't understand something, they can always go back to school and tell the teacher they didn't understand something. It's not gonna be the end of the world. Yes.
My daughter down in third grade, you know, it's bad at math, it's hard for me. But when we have a conversation now, it's a little longer, when we had a conversation, we work it out. But it comes like a puzzle in the math.
There you go. You make it a puzzle, right? A little more of the problem solving, and that's what they're really good at. So yeah, that's another great strategy. So good, you guys. All right, here's another one, another speed bump. How do I know if my child is actually learning Spanish? Because they don't speak it at home, so how do we know? Yes?
I gotta put out a speaking Spanish with my family, that my little one started nodding her head, and like, she knows exactly what we're saying. Can't talk.
Oh, right, yes, like, yep, they know, they understand everything. Yes, don't let them fool you. Yes?
The older brother starts yelling at the younger brother.
The older brother starts yelling at the younger brother in Spanish. Yes, you're gonna get some of that.
I've asked my son to tell me what they are speaking about, and what is speaking Spanish, and they get Spanish.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, when they're listening to Spanish music, ask them, what are they singing about? Yes?
I had a really cool experience last year when I was in fifth grade. I have a cousin who's been in the public for like 20 years. She came to visit. She would only use Spanish at the same time, and her ability to carry on that conversation when she had no other choice. Whereas like when the parents try to speak Spanish, they know I know, they know I can respond. So, but when there was no choice, the language production was empty.
Right, right. And that is exactly, if you can put them in a true immersion environment, that's what we try to do in the classroom, right? That's why we try to have one side to be 100% in Spanish, because we want to really create that need to use the language. So that's a great example. Yes, in the back or side.
I do like to speak Spanish to the leader part, and they want to speak secret. Totally in front of that.
Yes. Yes. See, there's a purpose for doing that, there has to be a reason for using it. So yeah, that's another great example. So let me just give you a little bit of background, a little bit of additional background on this particular speed bump. Again, this is one of the Fidelity Assurances that is very important, that has to be addressed. And I just want to let everybody know that there are what we call proficiency scales out in the real world. Proficiency is a way to measure not what you know about a language, but what you can do in the language. So it's spontaneous communication, basically. Independent communication, on the spot communication. And so there are real scales that measure this proficiency out in the real world. The one on the left is the one that's more typically used in the United States, and the one on the right is used more in Europe and a lot in South America. Although the one on the left is now popping up all over the world too. Anyway, they've been crosswalked, and they're used in the real world, in the real career professional areas. If you're in a professional area, let's say you go work for a bank in Switzerland, and they want to know what your German proficiency level is, you would take a test that is from the same company that does Apple, but they do adult version tests, and you would get a proficiency score, a proficiency rating for yourself. And that goes on your resume. So you guys, when you're taking the Apple test now, that's the K-12 version. But when you get out into the real world, you'll take the real adult version, which is called an OPI and a WPT. So all these letters, but you guys will be super prepared for it because it's the same company that does the Apple, so it's kind of the same approach to testing your proficiency. So these three, my little arrows didn't come out too well. So there's basically three of these levels, and you can see they're colored, that we have brought down into K-12 education. And dual language immersion is the only model that will get you the highest into the orange or into the top person that is like a reporter. So the differences between these sections are the ones that the blue is called novice level, and it's kind of like a parrot. And that's where you start. Anybody who starts learning a language will be a novice language speaker, writer, reader at first. And we'll move you through those levels until you get into intermediate, which is the green. And then you'll spend more and more time in the green. See how that pyramid goes out like this? So you actually can get through the novice in a couple of years, but then intermediate, you'll spend definitely more years in intermediate. All the way into high school, you'll still be intermediate, and then towards the end of high school, you could probably get into advanced, is what we see with immersion students. And then that would be a reporter who can talk about past tense, future tense, tell a story on the spot. So you have to get to a pretty high level of proficiency. The intermediate one is called a survivor because they can survive in the language. They might be making mistakes, and that's okay. That's totally developmentally normal. And that's just kind of how the trajectory goes. So we use those, that inverted pyramid is actually the national, like I said, the national model, and then Arizona adopted that as the Arizona World and Native Language Standards. So just like you have standards for math, we have Arizona state standards for languages that are based on that scale. So tell your partner what you think these are. There's kind of 5 main areas of communication, of language. What do you think the top one is? All right, you want to guess? I think the students got to it a little quicker than you guys did. But what's the first one, guys? Speaking, and it's formally called interpersonal communication because it's speaking with 2 people as opposed to this speaking, presentational speaking. You guys do a lot of presentations in your class? Yeah, because it's a standard, but that's it. That's a nice like little sideline skill that they're picking up there that they have to do because it's part of the standard. So there's a difference between interpersonal communication and one-way presentational communication. Presentational writing, and then there's the 2 interpretive domains, interpretive reading, interpretive listening. So those are the standards, and basically in an immersion program, the teacher has to take those standards and they have to teach and merge them into the academic content standards, science, social studies, whatever the content area is, and teach them together, right? And through that content area, try to continue to elevate that language proficiency. And so it is quite the heavy lift for teachers. This is a lot more work for teachers than who are not teaching another language. So I always love giving, kudos to our teachers. Kind of like when English teachers have English learners in their class, and they have to use the English standards, English learning standards for their English learners to learn English while they're teaching a content area. It's kind of a flipped situation, but anybody who does this kind of work it's kind of double duty. So wrapping up here quickly, Oh, it's, okay, wrapping up very quickly. So you guys will see these standards now on your proficiency progress report. The teachers here usually give this out at fall conferences, just so that you can have a copy of all of it. And they will highlight where they will be working, at what level they will be working that year. And then, the last thing I have for you tonight, for you guys to take home, oh, you know what? Maybe I can do this. But it's just a handout that I was gonna give you to take home with you, because it just has 8 different ways to support your child in language immersion. Just in case you didn't get enough ideas tonight, go home and you can have this to read through to get some additional ideas. And with that, I will close our time together by telling you that as parents, thank you for the work you're doing, because you're giving your child an amazing opportunity that a lot of people don't even know about. So spread the word. Let's get more people involved. Principal Werner said that I do some work in Delaware as a consultant, and in Delaware, they have a governor-led initiative for language immersion programs, and 1 in 5 of their kindergartners are in a program across the state. So they're trying to get immersion in every single school in Delaware. There's some districts there that have immersion in every single school. So spread the word, because we're a little bit behind in terms of that here, but it's an amazing opportunity, and you have to start young. You have to get them in there young, for that young brain to really acclimate and reap the benefits. So thank you to the students who came tonight. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you to the parents, thanks to the teachers. You guys are all amazing, and thanks, Principal Werner. We're excited to work with you this year.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you for coming, everybody. We definitely appreciate it. Spread the word about DLI, and specifically here at Sandpiper DLSI, dual language Spanish immersion. If folks have questions, please have them contact us. We will have the answers for them. Thank you. Be safe.